Hello and welcome to Odds on Premier League Match Day 9. I'm sure everyone was missing Tom Rennie. He was having a well-deserved rest, enjoying Jude Bellingham. Sorry, Tom, but now Jude Bellingham comes again to us. How is life, Tom? Enjoying the Premier League. We left the Premier League with another defeat for Man City.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're getting there, right? We're getting there. This will be a good season. You'll have a good Premier League season if Manchester City lose 6 games. If that happens, that means there's a possibility, a slight chance that somebody else might win it. And if somebody else might win it, that means we go to a final day and it's going to be great. 2 down, 4 to go. Could be on.
Let's see, very interesting, and we have a good game, Man City Brighton this Saturday, but of course also the Merseyside Derby, so let's not waste any time. Guys, ask any question to Tom. As always, tell us your tips in the comment section, and of course, press the like and subscribe, and now let's go on with the show. Let's get some winners, as Viper is telling us. Before, I want to remind you that you can get an exclusive welcome bonus with 1xBet and with Oddspedia. Use our promo code here, Oddspedia YouTube, and you can get 130% in your welcome bonus. Well, Tom, a lot of games on Saturday, and the first one is the Merseyside Derby, Liverpool, Everton, and luckily for Liverpool, they couldn't take the opportunity to get some points from Man City because they could only draw in Brighton, winless in 2, because we all remember that harmful defeat against Spurs. And in this international break, their strikers had a lot of job. We saw Núñez signing with Uruguay. We saw Luis Diaz missing a penalty with Colombia. If we go into betting, Tom, I guess this is Liverpool Asian handicap, no?
Yeah, I mean, you have to go Liverpool win here in all sorts of scenarios. And I've got a couple of tips that are quite conservative that I think will come in. And 1 or 2 that are slightly more exaggerated that'll make you a bit more money. I'm trying to find 2-to-1 bets, which is kind of 3 on your decimals. But look, briefly on the game itself, I think Everton have won this game twice in the last 30 years or so, back in 1999, plus during lockdown when James Rodriguez starred at Anfield. Beyond that, Liverpool win or this game ends up a draw. So you've got to go Liverpool. Plus, on recent form, look at the goals being scored by Liverpool right now. In every game, you go through this run of 18 goals in just 8 games. A couple are scored against Brighton, 3 against West Ham, 3 against Wolves, 3 against Aston Villa, even 1 against Tottenham, which technically should have been 2. But let's not get back into that. And they finished that game with 9 men and still nearly got something from it. So this Liverpool team, I think they are the closest to a contender for Man City. I'd put them above Arsenal, personally, in my list of teams that can contend because of the incredible goal-scoring threat they have all over the field. So big favourites to win, scoring plenty of goals, and we'll pick out some bets for them in a moment. For Everton, you know, away from home, they've actually looked a little bit better. I know they beat Bournemouth 3-0 at home in their last game, but I think away from home, they've actually shown some real stoicism and organisation. There's something about the way Sean Dyche sets up his team, which almost fits playing away from home. They low block, they sit deep, they work the channels. And I think with Dominic Calvert-Lewin coming back in and actually being fit for more than 12 minutes, that makes a massive difference. They have right now, if he stays fit, a £50 million striker. That's how good a fit Dominic Calvert-Lewin is, but of course, rarely fit in 3 years. Great header of the ball. He can run the channel. He's got pace. He holds the ball up well. He scores sniffer goals as well as more interesting goals. He gives Everton something they've not had in such a long time. So him being fit does throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. And I would say against maybe 10 or 12 other teams in the league, they might stand a chance this weekend, but not this particular game. In terms of top tip for this one, I think Liverpool to win without conceding is my highest tip here. That comes in around 2.63. So I think that will get to around 3 by the time we get to Saturday morning. And the reason I think that is that Everton, despite having Calvert-Lewin back, are just not a team that are going to score many goals. And I think Liverpool defensively, Virgil van Dijk is fit. Konate should be fit. Matip should be fit. All but Robertson across the strongest back line should be fit. I think midfield is far too strong. Defensively, I don't see Everton getting in behind. And I don't think that physical presence of Calvert-Lewin is going to bother Virgil van Dijk. That takes away Everton's goal threat. Plus, Liverpool have that goal threat to go on to win this game. So Liverpool to win to 0 is my top tip. But there's some other ones in there. You mentioned handicap. I think that's absolutely right. A -2 handicap brings you to that magical over 2-1 double your money. That's 3.25 this morning. -2 Liverpool win. I think that's going to come in. And then look at a couple of other markets here. Mo Salah has been in incredible form at the start of this season. So double up Liverpool win with some Salah stats. He's got great record against Everton as well. It's 3-4 against them. So Salah to assist 1 goal or more and Liverpool win. That brings you in at 3.25. Same as the handicap, but just a slightly different way of looking at it. Salah to have 3 shots on target and Liverpool win. Also quite interesting to me. 4.5. That is really, really tasty here. And if you feel really confident, -3 handicap brings you in over 5. So, look, I'm not going to do that. I think that's too wild. But all sorts of Liverpool win, doubled up with Salah, and there's money to be made.
Probably it's a bit too wild because, as Corello is telling us, Sean Dyche will park the bus at Anfield. Davos thinks that Everton will nick a goal, and Adam is confident on Everton. Good luck with that. Wow. The value is definitely in the draw. Well, there is value, but it's very unlikely that Everton can get a point at Anfield. Let's move to the next game, a bit less interesting. Bournemouth Wolves, perhaps is the last chance, no, for Andoni Iraola. I guess the credit is running out for the Spanish manager. Still no wins. The last game was a defeat against Everton, 3 consecutive defeats, conceding 10 goals in those games. So looking really bad. And now they have Wolverhampton, a team that is getting better and better. And they grab a point against Aston Villa. They beat City. I think no one expected them to get 4 points out of these 2 games.
No, look, I think this is an interesting game because of the Gary O'Neill factor, who did an incredible job last year keeping Bournemouth up. And let's not forget last season was a really, really difficult challenge to stay in the Premier League. There was no Burnley, there was no Sheffield United, there was no Luton. And so trying to stay in the league was very difficult. That's why teams like West Ham and Wolves and Everton were really dragged into it last year. And of course, Leicester and Southampton went because the newly promoted teams were really good. This year, they're all useless. And so you can kind of be a bit average and stay in the league this year. Teams like Brentford and teams like Wolves and Forest, they're going to be fine because Luton and Sheffield United exist. In terms of this game, look, it was a massive mistake getting rid of Gary O'Neill, who built something at Bournemouth that it was never going to get him in the top 10, but it was certainly a manager who invested in the squad in January, who had a good feeling about the place, who'd won some really important games, and then to sacking for someone who, look, I'm sure people who listen to niche Spanish La Liga podcasts thinks a terrific manager, but it's a massive risk to bring in a young manager who's never worked in England before in any capacity to a club like Bournemouth who don't have the best players. It's a risk if you bring in like Arteta, right? But he'd been a player in England for 15 years and he'd worked at Man City and then going to Arsenal. And we thought that was a risk, but he at least knew the league and knew what it was about. And you can get there quite quickly. Iraola isn't doing that. And going toe-to-toe in some of these games has been woeful, really. I mean, look at the way they set up against Arsenal, the way they set up even against Chelsea in that draw, the way they played against Tottenham in a game I worked on was average, and they just can't do that. In terms of Wolves, what's interesting about them is that a couple of players have come to the fore. And when they sold Matheus Nunes, who wasn't great, frankly, in his year at Wolves, we wondered who was going to be the stars. Pedro Neto being fit for the first time, really, in like 3 years. Incredible. I think he's a 50, 60 million pound player, if fit consistently. Superb talent. And Hwang Hee-chan, scoring goals, creating chances, looking like the striker they've not had since Raul Jimenez got injured and never quite came back to his best. So I can't see anything here other than a Wolverhampton Wanderers win. And frankly, as a top tip, you're getting it at 2.88. Again, that will, I think, just drift as we get towards the weekend as a flurry of bets go on a home win, as it usually does. So a away win here at 2.88 is already something I'm happy to take. To make it more interesting, look at Wolverhampton Wanderers to win, but under 2.5 goals. These are not big goal-scoring teams here. Wolves this year have scored, I think, 9 in the league, whereas Bournemouth have only scored 5. So don't expect this to be a thriller. Wolves to win under 2.5. That brings you in at 6.5. And those two players I mentioned, Hwang Hee-chan to score and Wolves win. 6 is Pedro Neto to score and Wolves win is 7. So a whole bunch of Wolves win will make you some money here.
That Korean guy, we trust on him. There is value for sure on Wolves. I think no one can understand why Bournemouth, they are favorites for this game. So, as Corello is saying, the value is in Wolves. Just take it in the way you want. Tom highlighted for you some very good tips. And talking about average teams that you mentioned before, Brentford, Burnley, both have been poor so far, and they are both in a bad run. Winless in 6, Brentford, Burnley. Luckily for them, they beat Luton because they faced Luton not long time ago. Away from home, not that bad. 1 victory, 1 draw, and 1 defeat for Burnley.
Yeah, look, I mean, Brentford, I say this every week, they're a very well-coached side. They're a very good side, but they're not a spectacular side. I think, to borrow a terminology from my friend Paul Mortimer, the former Villa winger, in teams, there are stars, co-stars, and extras, and they are a team full of extras. And that's the trouble with Brentford. The stars were David Raya and Ivan Toney. One has gone and one can't play, and there are no stars replacing them. And that's an issue for Brentford right now. There's not a great deal of top-level quality. And that's similar for Burnley, really. Coming from a further back position, there's no one really that's been outstanding so far. Lyle Foster scored a couple of goals. Koleosho has had a couple of moments. But in general, it looks like a championship team, and they're going to struggle to stay in the division. I know that Burnley haven't got anything so far at home. I know away from home, they've had a couple of decent performances, as you mentioned. But 5 home games this season and lost every single one of them. That's the issue. Away, they've competed. And I think the fact this game doesn't have any real star power, the fact that I think neither team looks particularly proficient in front of goal, means this is the game this week that screams draw to me. It screams draw, 3.75. I'll be tipping this as a draw. And I wouldn't say go for specific scores. I always say avoid that. But I do like 1-1 at 7. That's 6-1, 7 on the decimals. I like that. This really feels like Burnley are going to take the lead and Brentford will equalise, and everyone will be happy just to go home and forget the game as soon as possible. 1-1.
Viper is also going for the 1-1. I guess it's a game not worth our time to watch. Perhaps it's good to make some money if we go for the draw. It's much better to watch the next one, of course, Man City, Brighton. Let's see if Man City can bounce back after the back-to-back defeats in the Premier League. Rodri is back. By the way, I listened to an interview to Rodri in these days. He's a very smart guy. Then you realize how good he plays football and how he understands the game, because he really knows how to speak. Well done, Rodri. And for this game, Tom, Man City to win 1.45. We saw Brighton in the past putting in trouble, for instance, Man United, but right now they are winless in 4. Can they harm Man City in any way?
I mean, they can, absolutely. They're a team, Brighton, who I think everyone loves to watch them play because they are just so exceptional compared to the quality of talent available to them. No really significant injuries going to this one for both teams. There are some doubts about Kaoru Mitoma. They're saying illness, but I think he'll be fit. That feels like a little bit of caution there. I think he'll play. Look, Man City's recent form, right? What do we say about their start to the season? Were they poor against Arsenal? Yeah, I think they were, actually. I think it was an underwhelming performance. I think that the loss of Gundogan has been massive for them. You've mentioned Rodri quite rightly. I think he's their most important player. He plays every minute of every game. So when he's not available, it's a huge loss. Everyone loves Rico Lewis, right? But there's no replacement there in terms of the quality of Rodri. And look, we got to mention Kevin De Bruyne has been missing for a long, long time now. And again, there's world-class talent all over this team, Jack Grealish and yada, yada, yada. But no one's Kevin De Bruyne. The guys that play every game and bail City out when they have a bad day, they currently are not there. And because of that, games like Arsenal happen. Before that, I think it's a similar story with the Wolverhampton Wanderers match as well. So, tough time for them. Back at home, though, I think that they will feel a bit wounded from what has happened. And I think they'll go all out offensive, no complacency in a game like this. In terms of Brighton, when they've lost this season, they've really been walloped. They have really been thumped. 3 by West Ham, and of course, was it 6, I think, in the end against Aston Villa. An absolute thumping, 6-1 their last away game. Are they going to change the way they play? Absolutely not. And that means A, spectacular, B, goals at both ends, and C, big Man City win, right? So, I think here, go Man City win and both teams to score. I'm keeping it conservative because of some doubts about recent Man City form. That brings you in at 2.38. I think, again, as we get towards the weekend, that might drop down a little bit, but the both teams to score will bring you up. So I think that makes it a touch daring. If you don't have the confidence in City, I know some people don't, draw on both teams to score is at 6s. That does stand out to me because I do think this will be a bit of a slobber knocker of a match. It just depends on whether you think Brighton can score 2 or more goals in this game, which you have to score usually to get something from Manchester City. But I think the most likely scenario I picked out at 4.5 is the first half might be a bit staid and stoic, and then City in the second half start to rack up the goals. Draw at half-time, City win at full-time, 4.5. I kind of want to do Asian handicap. I kind of want to do over 3.5 goals in the game, but the confidence for City isn't quite there for me at the moment with the last couple of results. So those are my tips.
And going for the individual markets, someone, Romario, oh, great name, Romario, highlighted Alvarez to score at any time. Julian Alvarez scored a beauty in the Champions League. He was good also with Argentina. Could be a good idea.
Yeah, I think 3 goals and 3 assists in the Premier League this season. Julian Alvarez, he has been terrific. They're finding a position for him because he's not going to displace Erling Haaland. He's kind of becoming the Gundogan. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad tip. I'd certainly look at the assists and goal market, double that up. That'll bring you around 10, 11. So that might be quite nice. Yeah, definitely. Good player.
Good game, this Man City Brighton, and it's also interesting in St. James's Park, Newcastle Crystal Palace, especially after the whole Tonali scandal breaking in the international break. The most expensive signing for Newcastle now cannot play, and apart from this, Newcastle, we left them in good form. They got a point against West Ham. They were leading with Isak scoring a brace. Before that, 4 victories in all competitions, including PSG, but Palace is kind of a pain in the ass. Tom, is a team that I don't want to play against them. Only 2 games were over 2.5 goals in the season for Crystal Palace. They always keep it competitive, keep it low, keep it tight.
Last I heard, Tonali could play. I think they were planning to play him. I know that's changed since I looked at the news yesterday morning, but I know the charges are hanging over him, but Newcastle were supporting him and his family and all that sort of stuff. So I think he's going to play. We will see. In terms of Newcastle, look, I think that the start of this season, they've got better and better as the weeks have gone on. I think that it's funny, the West Ham game. Second half, they were fantastic. First half, they were terrible. And people who said, oh, they played a European game on the Wednesday. I know it was against Paris Saint-Germain. They were at home. West Ham are away against Freiburg, who are a good team, on the Thursday. So, I don't really get the argument they were tired. West Ham would have been more tired. Yet I think West Ham, in the end, would feel a bit disappointed not to have gone on to win that game. But anyway, it was a really interesting match. Newcastle defensively, the back line should be back together again with Botman and Burn and the usual 4 there, and Nick Pope too. So look, I think defensively sound. Midfield, I think losing Joe Linton this season has been massive for them because I think he's so important to the energy and physicality of Newcastle United. And Tonali, look, whether he's fit or not, I don't think he plays, frankly. He's not been great since coming in. And I think Sean Longstaff has really stepped up and said, I should have that position. It's mine and I want to keep it. And so I think you're looking at Bruno Guimaraes, Longstaff, and maybe even Elliot Anderson as the trio in midfield for Newcastle here. And I expect Isak, though there's some doubts about him, to play in front of Callum Wilson, but we shall see. In terms of Crystal Palace, the issue for them, let me read you this, the players that are going to be missing this weekend. And I did their game before the international break against Nottingham Forest, which was just, made you regret your career choices, really. Eze, no Ferguson, no Elise, no Lerma, Oliveira we still haven't seen, Joel Ward, Decore likely missing, Schlupp is out, Riedewald injured, Henderson injured. It's a huge list of players unavailable from a team that don't have that many great players. So that's a problem for Crystal Palace. You're right. I think you look at the scores, they will try and keep it tight. but I don't think they're going to be able to. So Newcastle win. Fine, take it. -2 handicap. I think they're going to be really aggressive here, Newcastle, out of the traps and get a big win. A -2 handicap brings you in at 4.5. -1, bit more conservative, brings you in at 2.25. But I think Newcastle win quite comfortably here.
Well, there is quorum here. Everyone is going for Newcastle to win. 1.5 is Newcastle to win if this is your safe bet. Next game is Forest Luton Town, also very favorite home team here. 1.7 Forest to win, even if they are winless in 4, but getting points. They drew 3 out of the last 4. They haven't lost at home since April, and it's Luton Town.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you said there was the most compelling argument, right? I think Forest are a good team. I mean, I'll be brief on them. I think they're a good team. I think they've got a good manager. I think they play aggressive football. I think they're a team that try and win matches. They don't sit in deep and try and nick a goal. And I don't disrespect that, by the way. West Ham do it very effectively. I think it's great when that is what you do well. That's not what Forest do well. And if you've got Alanga and you've got Hudson-Odoi and you've got Gibbs-White, players that are a bit hit and miss, but when they hit, very, very good. The surprise for me, really, for Forest is at home this season, just 1 victory. Draw against Burnley, draw against Brentford. That ain't going to be the story here. In terms of Luton, look, really impressive victory against Everton a couple of weeks ago in their first away victory in this division. But again, story for me remains the same. It's not a Premier League squad. They don't have Premier League quality players. I think they will fight in every game. I don't think they get thrashed in a lot of games, but I think they lose this quite comfortably. Forest win, sure. Give it a -1 handicap to bring you just under 2 to 1. I'll take that as my top tip. But also, I do think at some point, Forest are going to give someone a thumping at home. This might be it. So a -2 handicap is 6 on your decimals. That's 5 to 1. I really like that. 3-0 victory for Forest. It feels like it's going to be a nice, comfortable, they win both halves job.
Well, we have some people here trusting Luton Town. We have Elvis saying a screaming draw. Tyson, I have a feeling this could be a draw. And we had the same comment in our previous video with Luton Tottenham. Then Tottenham was playing with 10 men. And someone wrote in the comments, I was mistaken, Luton is really rubbish. And they didn't create any chance even playing against 10 men. Let's see if they can be competitive in this game. Best game in the weekend probably is this London derby, Chelsea-Arsenal, because Chelsea, they are probably kicking off the season, getting better, 3 consecutive victories, beating Burnley, beating Fulham. Now they have 3 home games. And what to say, of course, about Arsenal and that massive victory against Man City. After this tough game, by the way, they have to visit Seville in the Champions League, because there also they have to keep an eye on that. And this is the time where perhaps playing in the Champions League can pay at all for Arsenal.
Well, what do you say about Chelsea? I mean, it's just been extraordinary, hasn't it? It's so difficult to predict how they're going to play, not only in terms of, the way they play, the Pochettino setup, but also who's available. And I did it for Palace. I'll do it for Chelsea as well. Fofana and Nkunku, Chilwell, Lavia, Gusto, James, potentially Palmer, Disasi's a doubt. Jackson has got some sort of wrist problem. Broja has now got an issue. Badiashile remains out. Chalobah is missing. Chukwuemeka is missing. It's ludicrous that they can even put an 11 together. And they can, of course, because they have 48 players. So it's really interesting. I do think in the last Chelsea game, we saw a little more of what this team is going to be. The game over Burnley is probably the best performance of the Pochettino era. Look, it's not a strong group, I know, but you saw what that front three is going to be. You saw it a little bit at Fulham as well. He wants pace and dynamism from the front three. Palmer, Broja, and Sterling on that day. I think you're seeing Enzo Fernandez, who I don't think is great, but playing further forward, meaning Caicedo doing defensive work. He's getting better and better as the weeks go on. And even to the point where I know Cucurella is playing at right back at the moment and Colwell on the left, but you're seeing them getting forward. You're seeing the adventure that you're going to get when Chilwell and James are both available for them. So there's green shoots here with Chelsea. And eventually, when you spend that sort of money, you've got a good, competent coach, you're going to get there, right? They are going to get there, which is why it's so funny they aren't there yet. And long may that continue. It's great. It's great fun. In terms of Arsenal, what a victory over Man City, right? Didn't play anywhere near their best. They played better against City previously and not gone on to win that game. To win without Bukayo Saka as well, who's their most important player, in my opinion, made it even more impressive. Doubts about Saka in this one. Didn't play for England, of course, during the the international break, and we will see. He'd not trained at all on the last note on him. So we'll see if he's available or not. If not, the good news is Gabriel Martinelli is fit. And so a front three of Jesus, Trossard, Martinelli is still pretty strong. It's not Saka, but it's still pretty strong. In terms of Arsenal, I will back them to win this game. I actually like 2.4 on its own, Arsenal to win that game. Why? Because I still think Chelsea have got deficiencies that we've briefly covered. I still think defensively, they've got players like Cucurella and like Colwill who are doing a job, but they are not Chelsea's first-team defence. And though I think Caicedo has stepped up, would I pick Caicedo over Declan Rice in the teams they're currently in? No way. So if that is the battle for winning possession in midfield, I'd go Declan Rice. And the other players, I think Enzo Fernandez gets overrun here. Anyone with physicality will overrun him. And then how are they going to score? Look at Arsenal's defensive record this season. 6 goals conceded. Really, really impressive. And away from home, no one has scored against the Gunners. Look, I know it's only 3 games compared to 5 for others, but still, it's impressive nonetheless. So I will go with something I went with a few weeks ago. Arsenal win to 0. Arsenal win this game without conceding a goal brings you in this morning at 4.3. That is really, really good, I think, 4.3 for an Arsenal victory. 10-3, if you like your fractions. That's a really nice little pick. I think low scoring. I think Arsenal might score a couple, no more than 2, but I don't see Chelsea scoring against Arsenal's defence. I would also find another way to bet on that is Arsenal to win under 2.5 goals in the match. That brings you in at 5.2. So 3 ways of Arsenal win there.
Well, there is great value. Everyone is highlighting this on Arsenal to win at 2.4. And you mentioned also Arsenal to win 2-0. All the victories this season away from home had been to win 2-0. They haven't conceded yet away from home. They've scored 6 and they won all the games away from the Emirates. So this could be a good idea, a good pick for this weekend. Arsenal to win 2-0 against Chelsea. And also on Saturday, we have Sheffield United, Man United. I had the chance, by the way, to watch the last game of Man United against Brentford, and they were really rubbish. They were very lucky to get the victory, a miracle by McTominay after losing to Galatasaray and Crystal Palace. I guess they are lucky, Tom, that they are facing Sheffield United, the worst team so far in the Premier League. But after this game, they have to face Man City. We have the Manchester Derby.
Yes, and spoiler alert, next week I will be going Manchester City win. In terms of this one, briefly on Sheffield United, they are the worst team in the league. They have been the worst team in the league so far. The injury to Chris Basham a couple of weeks ago, the broken ankle, broken leg that he got was awful, and they never really recovered from it. But there's not enough quality there. McBurney and Archer, decent players, championship level. Ollie Norwood, Ben Hamer. I mean, look, there's players out there that are perfectly good championship players, but they have not bought Premier League quality. And as Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, pointed out a couple of years ago, the difference between the championship and the Premier League is the boxes. What happens in the boxes? Is your defence good enough? Is your offence good enough? And for Sheffield United, I think they fail on both counts. For Man United, I see this being quite similar to the Burnley game from a couple of weeks ago, which they won with that brilliant Bruno Fernandes volley. I think they're going to win this game. And I think it'll be quite low scoring. The issues remain the same. I think we'll have a deeper dive on Man United at a later date. You know, no Martinez, no Malacia, no Wan-Bissaka. Luke Shaw remains out. Doubts about Reguilon. Varane is a doubt. Amrabat is a doubt. And we know what's happening with Sancho and Anthony has returned to the fold. But what does he offer anyway? So the issues are all there and much discussed. But in this particular game, I'll go for Manchester United to win. I can't see Sheffield United scoring, mainly because they're so poor offensively, rather than Man United are good defensively. Just 6 goals scored is pretty pitiful. Low scoring, though. So a low scoring victory. Man United win to 0. And also, if you're picking out a player, I did this last week. I know it didn't work out for me, but Marcus Rashford scored for England against Italy. Really good goal. Him and Bellingham combining. I can see him going on a run. It is going to happen at some point. So Rashford scores. Man U win. 2.75, but low scoring. Man United win.
They have 2 easy games now on paper, of course. Sheffield United and then Copenhagen before facing Man City, so they must win this one. We were seeing the list of absentees in our website, in the Oddspedia website. I forgot that the Reguilon was in Man United squad. Oh my God, he has the best agent in the world. Man United to win and under 3.5 goals for Angela, for instance. Let's see what happens here. For sure, the Red Devils should win this game. Only one match on Sunday, but it's a very good one. Both teams are involved in European competitions on Thursday. I'm talking about Aston Villa West Ham, really good, especially because Aston Villa, they are very strong at home. The last game was the result you highlighted before, the 6-1 against Brighton, but they've won, Tom, the last 10 Premier League games at Villa Park. This is impressive, and let's see if West Ham, very competitive in every game against every single team, can put an end to this streak.
I think this actually might be the most difficult game of the weekend, to be honest. I can see all scenarios. I really can quite easily see all scenarios here. On Aston Villa, I think that they've been very un-Emery, as we've discussed on previous programs, but offensively very, very strong. Going forward, I think Moussa Diaby is a sensational footballer. It looks like he's going to be fit, and so that's a real worry for West Ham. I think Watkins scoring again. You know, he is so crucial to the way Aston Villa attack. I think getting John McGinn further forward, you know, he's got nothing wrong really, Unai Emery, since going to Aston Villa. And I think that offensively they are very strong. My concern for them is that the quality of the players they have defensively are not great. I'm not sure about Pau Torres. Tyrone Mings being out means Desiree Constance playing a lot of games. Not sure about him. And Diego Carlos looks finished from the player he was when they first signed him. I don't see him being a massive Premier League success. So there are issues there for Villa defensively, which maybe is why they've gone so offensive in their games so far this season. Just 3 games at home, 13 goals scored, 6 against Brighton, yes, but 3 against Palace and 4 against Everton. So if you're going Aston Villa win here, I think high scoring. Villa winning over 3.5 goals in the match brings you in at 3.25. That's my top tip for this one. I do think Villa are going to win it with both teams scoring and it being an entertaining thriller. But I do have a little feeling for West Ham because I just love the way they set up in games like this. Look at the way they set up against Brighton. Look at the way they set up against Chelsea and even City and Liverpool, games they lost but were very competitive in them. You look at Jarrod Bowen, who's been sensational start of this season. Lucas Paquetá has been incredible from the player that he didn't really do anything last season. But you can see this year, he's had a year of Premier League football. The team is almost built around him now. And he's stepping up to that plate of, I should have been at Man City. Well, luckily for West Ham, he's not. Vladimir Soufal, 4 assists this season, getting back to his form of 2 years ago. Emerson's been terrific. No one's dribbled past Kurt Zouma this season. Areola makes great saves. I could go on. There's been so many great performers from West Ham this season, and they will fancy their chances of getting something from this game. Again, I go over 3.5 goals. If you switch it to West Ham to win, that brings you in at 9. That's 8-1. 9. I think that's really, really nice for West Ham to win 3-1. 3-2. I think it'll be that sort of scoreline here. You can also take West Ham win and both teams to score 5.5. Again, money to be made here. But I just think West Ham are going to score. I think they are going to go toe-to-toe with a team that they will feel are direct competitors for 5th this season. And remember, everyone, 5th should get you in the Champions League next season. And I think one of these 2 teams could be in that group. So it could be a really important match.
Well, both teams to score is 1.58. Also, Corello is highlighting something very important and very good for you, Tom, to feel optimistic. West Ham have a very good record at Villa Park. They won the last 3. I was checking right now in our website. So let's see if they can continue to grab points from Villa Park. Some other people are going for draw, for goals, as Gersau is telling us. Well, really good game to enjoy on Sunday. And for Monday, we have the last game, maybe the best, because we have the best team in the Premier League so far, the top of the standings. Tottenham grabbing the 3 points, even suffering against Luton because they were down to 10 men. Van de Ven scored his very first goal in the Premier League. Tom, I guess we should expect Spurs to win. I guess Fulham is kind of these average teams that, apart from the game they played in the Emirates, what they are doing is just beating the poor teams like Sheffield United or Luton, but not being really competitive against other teams, apart from Arsenal.
My only doubt here, my only spanner in the works, is that I saw a video of Son Heung-min coming off for South Korea during the international break looking injured. So we've not had the update as we record this as to his health. Nothing in my list says he's going to be injured for a long time, but being fit for Monday is a different thing from a long-term injury. So a slight spanner in the works there, though even if Richarlison comes in, I'd still fancy him. But still, Son has been up there with Maddison in terms of importance for Tottenham start of this season. Incredible, right? You mentioned it. Best team in the country, 6 fixtures from 8 games, but also only 3 at home, of which they've won the lot, and 2 of them were in the fire, the haggis in the fire until the last few seconds, and they went on to win those matches. So, really impressed with Tottenham. I don't think they'll be champions. I think there's every chance they'll qualify for the Champions League in 3rd or 4th, but don't think they'll be in the race long term. In terms of Fulham, you made the point there. This is a weak squad. I think losing Mitrovic and replacing him with a combination of Vinicius and Jimenez is a problem. I think Tim Ream at 36 is looking 36. I think midfield lacks a bit of creativity. Harrison Reed and Palhinha need Pereira or Willian to step up more, and they're not quite doing it as they were last season. So issues there for Fulham. No chance here for me. Fulham get a victory. Go for Tottenham win and go for over 2.5 goals in the match because Tottenham win is so low. Still quite low at over 2.5, but the Son factor just makes me pull it back a little bit from what I would have gone for here. So I'd also look at a -1 handicap. That's 2.25. And James Maddison, sensational player. His assists and goals numbers really, really good. Maddison to assist and Tottenham to win also brings you in with a tidy sum as well.
Tottenham to win, keep it simple for Viper, for Elvis. It should be a home victory. The last game, perhaps this is a good one to put in your ACCA. We will see in a minute. Tom, first, your safe bet?
Safe bet this weekend is Liverpool to win. They always beat Everton. They always win the Merseyside derby. And right now, I would back Liverpool to pretty much beat anybody at home. So Liverpool, safe bet.
Beautiful header from Nunez, by the way, against Brazil. I really liked it. And your ACCA?
I've not put Liverpool in my ACCA because putting them in or out makes no real difference to it. So I picked a treble of victories, which there are some variables in this, but it's a bit risky, but I like this. Arsenal to win against Chelsea. There's a risk in that, but I think they're big favourites. Man United to win. I know that's very brave in this particular climate. Put Tottenham in there as well. Brings you in at 4.6 for a treble.
Big news. We don't have Man City. We don't have Luton Town to lose. Something is changing in Tom's mind. Let's see next week what we have. Perhaps it's a safe bet, Man City to beat Man United in the derby. Until then, Tom, thanks everyone for watching. See you soon. Bye. Hasta la vista.